So welcome back to the Defiant Spirit. Baruch Levi, be here with my good friend, Julie Mouse. Hey, Julie.
Hi, B. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for coming back. Seventh time. This is Enneagram 7, in case anybody's just joining us. Julie and I, we've done more podcasts in this series, but this series has been certainly our longest run, trying to go through all 9 of the Enneagram types. Ennea means 9, looking at them through the lens of Julie's expertise. She wears many hats, not the least of which, in addition to her Enneagram hat, is her mindfulness hat. And so Julie will tell you about that in a second, but we're wedding these two things, which really were born to go together, the Enneagram and mindfulness, and built around Dr. Viktor Frankl's idea that between stimulus, things happening to us, and our choosing to either react or respond, there's a space. And in that space lies our power to choose our response. And so we're talking about the space, becoming mindful, becoming conscious, choosing our response. And each of the Enneagram types is going to have different sets of things that they're up against and different choices to make. So Julie, before we jump into Enneagram 7, a little bit about mindfulness and how you see it wed together with the Enneagram.
Yeah, I am passionate about both of those things. And the reason is because what differentiates the Enneagram from all the other personality tests is this ability to see where your better choices are. How can you be a better version of yourself, right? But it's just like all the personality tests. If you just learn about that, if you don't also learn that when you pause, you can see that you can choose to do things differently. So when you learn about the Enneagram, you learn what those tendencies, your habitual tendencies, when a stimulus happens or when a stressor happens. And it's great you learn about those tendencies, but if you don't learn to pause in that moment, most of us, we go right into our habitual responses. We have a really hard time even just seeing that this is a different way to do it. And so when you learn what I call the magic of the pause, which is a lot of what you learn in basic mindfulness practices, you can pause. And this is where the Viktor Frankl quote marries these two together so well. You can pause and actually feel that space where every ounce of your body is trying to get you to do something one way, even though it's it's an unhealthy way. But once you learn about the Enneagram, you start to see that and you start to see what your healthier choice is. And once you start choosing that, you see some real growth and change in your life.
Totally. So otherwise it just becomes a cocktail party conversation or a pickup line. Hey, what's your number? Right? Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Now nothing left, nothing else. What you're saying is the way the Enneagram was evolved, nobody created it. It's just evolved over thousands of years. This is a roadmap for consciousness and conscious living. I would say another differentiator between this and other personality tests, nothing wrong with them, but they certainly aren't, evolving over thousands of years. But even more importantly, when I do Myers-Briggs, I'm an INFJ. Do you know your type?
Yeah, I'm an ENFP.
Those are like almost opposite.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. You're the 9 and you're the E and I'm the 8 and I'm the I, right? The introvert, the extrovert. Opposite that you would think. But bottom line is you're one or the other.
Right.
And what I love about the Enneagram, and if you're listening, is you have 7 in you. We all have all of these 9 energies or pathways or roadblocks and response paths. And so as you're listening to it and we go into Enneagram 7, you don't need to say, well, this isn't my type, therefore I'm checking out. You can say, I don't have a lot of access to this energy and I want more. Or maybe it's my core type and I have too much access to it and I'd like to harness that a little more, but all 9 are within you. I love that about the Enneagram.
Yeah. And then even I was just talking to my brother this morning. He's a 7 and I'm not a 7, but I was talking to him about how our family has this 7 culture to it. Like we glorify the 7 way of being. And so we're all very familiar with it.
That's interesting too. Another conversation for another day, but I know you come from a very large Catholic family. And when I think of Catholicism, I think of the 1. And the 7 is almost this line that keeps that 1 in balance, right?
Right.
So that would be an interesting conversation too.
Oh yeah, we could have a whole podcast on that.
We're going to do it. Come back for Catholicism and the Enneagram. I want to do one on Judaism and Christianity. So bottom line is that's not today's topic. Today's topic, and I don't want to fail to get to it quickly, probably not quickly enough. The Enneagram 7s may have already turned the dial. They may have already moved on to greener pastures. Enneagram 7, the enthusiast, the optimist, the epicure, any other names? Dreamer, visionary. You get the vibe.
Yeah.
Right. I can't always tell the vibe of a person, but usually with 7, except for one of the subtypes, which we're not going to get into, by and large, I can tell when they got a 7 thing going on. It may not be their core type. It may be part of their whole type, or called tri-type. So maybe it's how they think, even if it's not necessarily their dominant type, but you can feel when you're in the presence of a 7. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. And as a 9, I notice a natural just kind of affinity for 7s because they get me, the 9 tends to hold back and maybe be a little slothful, where when I'm around a 7, I feel my energy uplift. I mean, I used to say, like, every friend I have is either a 7 or has a high 7, because it makes me feel good about myself just being around them, because that energy is contagious.
They're almost a yin and a yang. I would say 7 and 5 are real yin and yang, but 7 and 7 and 9 are almost like that too.
Yeah.
I react and respond like an 8, and there's a lot of similarity with that space between 7 and 8. But 8s tend to be more intense.
Yes.
There's more of an anger fuel versus 7, which is more of a fun fuel.
Exactly.
And who doesn't like the fun fuel? I mean, I wish I had more of that.
Right. Oh, a friend of mine recently said something about that. I know everyone wants to be a 7, but it's not easy being a 7. And that might be a good segue into the shadow side.
The 7s are one of the types where they get romanticized into, because even if you look at the personalities, in my system, I do not hold by this as hard data science, but it vibe. And you look at a Brad Pitt and a George Clooney and just a Matthew McConaughey, and thinking of what's her name? Cameron Diaz. These are people like that just we want to be around. We want to be like them.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another one. Is my favorite example is Jim Carrey.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I love this example because I want to be him. And then you find out later, or Robin Williams is another one. You find out later that, what's going on underneath the surface isn't always in alignment with what's being presented above the surface. That's
right.
dangerous territory.
Right. I think a lot of even 7s themselves, when they find out, they're in the thinking triad, the head triad, so similar to the 5 and the 6. But when they find out that they are or when I talk to them about how, well, so you're in your head, you're thinking dominant, you're constantly churning, their eyes open wide. And it's almost like, wow, you know that I'm spinning, because a lot of people who don't know that about 7s might think that they're just carefree and fly by the seat of your pants. But actually all that doing is in order to get out of this incessant churning that just won't stop.
It's a huge distinction. If you're watching, you can see behind me the Enneagram. If not, you've seen the Enneagram. You can Google it. 5, 6, and 7, as Julie's referring to, are the head triad. And what's interesting is 7 and 8, even though they have the same vibe, they're in different triads. I'm part of the gut or the body triad as an 8. And that's where that intensity and that anger comes from. Mm-hmm. Whereas 7's energy is coming much more from the head, mm-hmm. which is a seat of lots of things, not the least of which is our anxiety. Mm-hmm. And I see this all the time too, Julie, where you name that for a 7 and it's almost like you outed them because mm-hmm. they wanted to present like they were the 8, like they were the go-getter, the doer. But the difference is, it's like they're trying to outmaneuver, outrun their anxiety.
Yeah, this friend of mine even said that she's trying to trick her mind into settling down by doing stuff.
So and then what happens with them is that generates juice, energy, and then it's faster. Mm-hmm. And it's never enough.
No.
Right. And that's one of the challenges with 7 is, can they stop pursuing every idea, every direction, every experience, and can they learn to stand still, which is a tall order sometimes for a 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to just be. And I think that's because when they stand still, all of a sudden they start to feel those feelings that they've been pushing away so hard, that all this thinking and doing helps keep those feelings at bay. And this friend of mine even described it to me that there's almost a fear that if she stops, that she won't be able to handle the feelings that'll flood in. So if I just keep going, then I won't. And why wouldn't everyone do that? There's this, like, everyone out there must be just afraid of their feelings.
And it's particularly hard for sevens because although I do believe America, where we're recording this, certainly the West, began as a 3 culture, achievement and doing. I do believe it's morphed into a 7 culture, which is much more of a go wide, not deep, experience everything. Like you jump from Facebook to Twitter to whatever. Like there's this jumping, energetic, can't keep up anymore. We can't sit still. So now you add that to somebody who's already prone to that challenge. That's a really hard thing to resist.
Yeah. And then it feeds on itself, because if you don't sit with your feelings, you don't learn, if you spend many years as a 7 thinking and doing in order to prevent feeling, then when something horrible happens, it's like you almost don't know where to start. You haven't experienced that.
And our culture just keeps like reinforcing, like with Instagram. I see with one of my daughters on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like that's a 7. Like she doesn't even, it's like when I used to flip through the channels, back in the old days when we used to watch regular TV so fast. And I was like, what are you doing? It's so fast. And that's a 7 energy of, no, there's got to be something better out there. There's got to be something better. Well, now what do you do when it's in your hand all day, every day? That's a lot of pressure on a 7.
Well, and so to bring the mindfulness piece in, right? When I try to talk to 7s about what gets them out of their minds and encourage them to try and practice some mindfulness practice, coming to stillness so they can feel. One of the things a lot of them answer is just, well, I can just put on a Netflix show that gets me out of my mind, or I can scroll through that gets me out of my mind. So there's so much out there that they use. And I'm like, that's not getting you out of your mind. That's just putting more thoughts. But yes, it works because it stops that incessant spiral, but it's not helping you learn to get out of your mind or to get in touch with your feelings, which is what they really need.
Yes. And coming back to what you said before, I love the Enneagram because it deals in cause, not just in effect. Like the underlying, what's underneath, and you already said it, but 7s have this core fear. Every type has a core fear, but the 7's fear, to me, it's a double fear. And I never know which one to pin it on. Maybe they're the same thing. One is suffering, negativity, darkness, whatever you want to call it. Some of the denser, darker experiences or emotions in life. And the other side of it is limitation, lack of freedom, right? Feeling stuck. And I guess those 2 things could go hand in hand, but there's certainly 2 things I see that 7s really struggle with. I think there's some connection there to the 9 too.
Yeah, there's a lot of avoidance of suffering with the 9, but the difference is that the 9 just needs to feel a sense of inner peace, and so suffering doesn't bring that sense of inner peace. But for the 7, they're avoiding suffering because if they're not doing, then they're not okay.
But there's also this piece of not just that they're not okay. I think there's a deep fear in the 7 energy of, I can't handle what's underneath this.
Yeah.
And here's a great example. This is my favorite example of it. Peter Pan. Peter Pan is oftentimes likened to a 7, the boy who doesn't want to grow up.
Yeah.
Lives in Never Never Land. Wendy, remember his playmate is in real life, if you will, was growing up and becoming more mature, and she was passing him by. And there was this moment when he's in her bedroom and he's wrestling with his shadow, and he can't catch his shadow. And then he catches it and he's like wrestling, and he's trying to stick his shadow onto his foot, and he can't do it. He can't own his shadow. And then she helps him sew it on. And I think that there's this primal fear for a 7 that they just can't handle their shadow or the life's shadows. That's scary.
Yeah. And they think that they're protecting themselves from that. And they don't realize that they're missing a whole part of life. Like embracing what's uncomfortable is part of it. Like in that movie Inside Out, there's no joy without sadness. They go together. So if you can't stop and be in your sadness and feel that, there's kind of a disconnection with other people.
I've seen oil and water combinations with sevens and fours. Fours, the individualists, the romantic. They're the natural dark
Yeah.
seekers.
Yeah.
They seek
Comfortable with discomfort.
they own their shadow. They probably have to like let it go, right? So
Mhm.
sevens can I've seen it literally. I have a combination in my life that's 7 and 4, where the 7 just looks at the 4 like, you are like dark and disturbing.
Yeah.
And the 4 looks at the 7 like, you are shallow and superficial.
Yes, exactly. And there's this like misunderstanding of both of each other.
And they each need what the other has to, and
Mhm.
that's why they're also why they're on opposite sides of the Enneagram almost, because they're just like yin counterbalances. So
Mhm.
can a 7 learn to own their shadow, to sit in the discomfort, to sit still? What else does a 7 grapple with?
Well, I was talking to my sister who's a 7 about this, and in the work environment, she says that sometimes she can be seen as dismissive. She's had people say that because when people come to her with problems, she just wants to, she's like, I just want to intellectualize it. And I'll be like, well, have you read this great book? Or have you da da da? Da? And then they get upset with me like I'm just completely dismissing them because I've reframed it into, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. You should, try this. It's great. And she thinks she's being helpful. But she said,
Mm.
I've learned that sometimes people, it feels dismissive is the word. And, it's so sad when I hear her say that because she cares so deeply. She would never want someone to feel dismissed.
And that's such a good point, because sevens reframe negative into positive. They're
Mhm.
part of the positivity triad, where nines, sevens, and twos all have their different ways of what I call being
Yeah.
toxic positivity.
Yes.
And like positive is good until there's negative data that you need to incorporate. And if you don't, you're being Pollyanna, you're looking past the reality. And sevens get accused of this quite often, like, like your sister's describing, when it's not that they're trying to look past the negative data, that's just their default.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Or she described another scene at work where she's kind of in a really intense, stressful environment and everyone's coming to her for answers. And she goes, I just sometimes shut down and I start ignoring people because I'm just trying to focus and get one thing done. Um, but it's like I have this ability as a 7, this superpower to just ignore everyone who I don't want to pay attention to. And again, that, dismissive thing can come up.
Because the flip side of that, like, there's always a shadow and a light. The light side of that is that's why they're the visionaries.
Yeah.
They can see forward down the road, like they have this ability to hyper focus. It's not that they're always scattered. They can become scattered in reaction and be like that dog from the movie Up, where every time there's a squirrel, he's talking squirrel, squirrel.
Yeah. Right.
But the flip side of that is they can become laser focused on the future, which is
Mm.
the direction they look towards, and people feel left behind or left out or unseen.
Yeah, right. And I think that waking up to that for a 7 is really important. Noticing that people, they might give people that sense that they don't care. And if they can, so here's where we go into mindfulness, like, is the ability to respond for it. Because when a 7 slows down, just slow everything down and come in contact with their feelings, they probably will notice that this person needs more than just an intellectual answer. They need me to sit and listen to them or just be with them.
It's the feedback I hear from partners of sevens all the time. He or she is not present.
Hmm.
They're just not here. They're not in the present moment, or they're not taking responsibility for present moment responsibilities. And it's because lots of reasons, not the least of which is, again, they're literally not in the present. They're not in their bodies. They're in their head. They're in the future. They're dreaming. They're planning. They're doing something that isn't here, and that leaves the people around them feeling unseen or unimportant. I even saw this recently. I was at a cocktail party event, and I was talking to somebody who I believe was a 7. I knew they were a 7 because they were looking over my shoulder while talking to me, and I know they saw a better opportunity.
Mhm.
I wasn't it.
Right? They're just always kind of thinking ahead and planning for the next thing. And it makes my friend was telling me this story, like I'll be on the airplane on the way home from a great trip and I'll start talking about the next trip we're going to take. And my husband will be like, can we just be in this great feeling we have from the trip we just took?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think like a 7. I'm not a 7, but I do think like a 7. So I get it and I empathize. Here's an interesting technique I've discovered with 7s, random but effective. 7s are all, not all, they by and large are touchy feely, huggy types, right? There are certain types like a 1. I would never go up and embrace a 1 in a bear hug.
Hmm.
But 7s just they're even introverted 7s are extroverts, right?
Hmm.
There's just this natural connection there. So, and they're not naturally body people, they're head people, but you can get them into their body by a back slap, like, hey, buddy, or if you're obviously appropriately, with this person, touching them to get them into their body, holding their hand, taking them by the shoulder. They're the kind that they like that interaction. And
Yeah,
I
but they
think
might not seek it. Like
they're
they're
not
not the one
seeking,
who's going to go out and give the hug. And they
but
might even give you a feeling that you shouldn't do that. Even that's exactly what they need.
but there's this like grounding, right? Getting them into their body kind of
Mhm.
a thing. And just and not just touch, but it's almost like when I go out with a 7 on like a coffee date or something, a meeting, I try and find places that are the least distracting as possible
Mm.
to get them into the present moment, grounded here and now, and just knowing that they're just driven to distraction. And whatever you can do to just ground them, that's a word that I come back to over and over, helps a 7 be present.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. And then when a seven's present, you can actually really feel it. My niece is a 7, and she said that when she is in that present moment, it's almost like cathartic because it's a letting go of this restlessness she has all the time. That she just all of a sudden feels this catharsis moment where she's like, "Oh my God, I'm in my body. Oh my God, I feel it." She's a runner, and she's like, it's like that moment where I stop thinking about like how am I doing on this run and is this getting me towards the goal for my marathon and did I run well enough today and all this stuff, and I just start enjoying the journey of the run, and I'll look up and I'll see the trees and what's around me and I'll feel my body and just enjoy the process. I think that's a lot for 7 is they get so focused on future that they forget to enjoy what's here right now, or they get so focused on what can bring me happiness, they forget the happiness that exists right here, right now.
I do think it's why 7s tend to like activities so much, not just because they have a hard time sitting still, but they like it puts their mind, look, I jog and it puts my mind at ease,
Hmm.
right? It's so you do something with your thinking as opposed to just sitting in your thinking.
Yeah, right.
So I meet a lot of them who are mountain climbers or hikers or water skiers or snow skiers. I mean, just doing.
Hmm.
Now, look, it's a double-edged sword. Partially that comes because of their inability sometimes to sit still.
Hmm.
Partially that comes from a self-awareness of knowing they need to do something to quiet their mind.
Did you know many 7s during COVID where COVID was just such a gift for them because it was a forced slowdown?
I did. It's a weird thing too because it was a love-hate. Either they loved it or they hated it.
Yeah, right. Right. The ones who are able to see it as an opportunity, like, oh, wow, this is different for me. And it actually feels good.
7s and 2s. Those were the two types that
Yeah.
really felt like, oh God, thank God, because 7s and 2s probably are two of the most present types in other people's lives.
Mm, right.
Sevens are not naturally reclusive. 5s can be, 9s can be, 4s can be. 7s are naturally out in the world.
Yeah, right. Right, and so
So
this forced slowdown where they're forced to, connect more with that line to 5 of solitude and what comes up, and maybe being with some of the suffering that comes up and realizing that that's a good thing to deal with the suffering I've had in my life. I feel like a better better person.
Sevens only benefit when they can face and embrace life's darker moments, life, the darker realities, suffering realities that we all have to face. I say this quite often, but I don't work with any sevens until midlife or onwards. Every time I've tried, it doesn't work. They don't stick around for the coaching or the counseling until they've had what, Kabbalah, we call it a shattering.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a divorce, can be the loss of a parent, can be financial despair, whatever it is. Until they've hit that and they're ready to stand in it, it's just very hard to pin down a seven.
Yeah, very hard to get them to see that they have suffering, because if they haven't had anything, they've had to had anything drastic happen to them, they can kind of ignore suffering. It's just pretend it's not there. And even some who do have something bad continue to ignore it. I've seen that too.
It's definitely one of the least representative of the types that I work with. When I put up all my clients on a chart, seven is not overly represented for that reason. Doesn't mean they can't do the work. It just means that they're wired to run. And I guess that's probably, a natural segue into the work that you do, helping all types defy their number, right? And not run, not react, but choose.
Well, and I say this almost as every number, like mindfulness practice is so good for this number, and here's why. And I'm going to add, this mindfulness practice for a seven is so good for the world, because so many of them run our companies and run things because of these visionary leaders. They're natural entrepreneurs. And so they tend to be in these positions where they have underlings that they're taking care of, or they're in charge of, or they're the boss of. And if they can learn to be in touch with their feelings and to be still, their ability to lead exponentially increases.
I work with a company here in town in Denver, and it's founded by a seven. It's led by a seven. They have an executive leadership team. Every single person on that team either was a seven or thought like a seven. Mm-hmm. And there were no fives or sixes either represented or thinking like fives or sixes. And one of the conversations we had, and I got data from around the rest of the company, the employees, there was a glass ceiling. And if people couldn't keep up with that energy, but not just the energy, just that quick thinking, they were looked down upon. It was like a second-class citizen. And what you do when you talk to the fives is they don't make decisions quickly, right? No. They need time to process,
Nines too.
Nines, but you think like a five, right?
No, I think like a seven.
Oh, you do think like a seven. Mm-hmm. So if you were a 9-5, and I know a lot of 9-5s, that means you act like a 9, but you think like a 5. There's a real methodical, nature to the process. And 7s, like I just back to your point, if they're leading companies, and disproportionately they're leading companies or organizations, they need to take into account that when they slow down, other people get to catch up.
Yeah, exactly. And we need their energy a little slower.
Yeah, so we can keep pace, and we'll never keep pace with a 7. Maybe an 8 will, but nobody else will. But good leadership is being out front, but not too far out front, and that's the work of a 7.
Well, and good leadership is relational, right? Is having that relationship with the people that you lead. Brené Brown talks about that all the time, is it being so primary. So a 7 needs to get in touch with their heart in order to have that relationship with the people they lead.
Totally. So let's, just pause for a second, get ready for our mindfulness moment. Julie has been leading us very mindfully in a guided, visualization, meditation, mindfulness practice. So we're going to take a few minutes to do that, and then we'll wrap it up on the other side. But as we have been starting each mindfulness practice with Dr. Viktor Frankl's quote, here you go. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our happiness. This is expanding the space for Enneagram 7, the Enthusiast.
So I'm just going to lay the groundwork before we begin and just say, we've been talking a lot about how 7s are thinking dominant. And what's so powerful about a meditation practice for you 7s out there, or any of you who are in relationship with a 7 to experience this, is when they pause and get into their body, they can actually get in touch with their feeling, the feeling center that's a little repressed. And for all the reasons we've talked about today, that's so critical in them being the best version of themselves and them being able to balance their doing with a certain sense of feeling so that people that they love in their life don't feel this dismissive thing going on. So I'm going to take you through a mindfulness practice where you really learn to ground into your body. And then I'm going to take you through a vision, a little bit of something that makes you uncomfortable. I've heard that a great practice for a 7 is every day to ask themselves what makes me uncomfortable. So they just sit with that feeling and get to know it and, as a practice. And then lastly, we're going to do what I call a little loving kindness practice, because since 7s are a little feeling repressed, bringing that sense of loving kindness into you can, on a regular basis and a little practice, can help you bring more of that out to the world. So we're just going to start, sit up tall wherever you're sitting, let your hands rest softly on your lap, and either close your eyes or lower your gaze. And then take 2 deeper than normal breaths. And when you exhale, feel your shoulders roll back and down. And then with head types, I like to start by bringing your attention to your feet because it's the furthest away from your head. And now for 7s, a lot of times in meditation, they'll just think about the anchor for attention. I don't want you to think about your feet. I want you to feel your feet. So what do you feel here? The contact with the floor, maybe the space between your toes, a sense of temperature, the sense of your sock or your shoe or the ground beneath you. And you're just anchoring your attention. And it's a beautiful way to bring your attention out of your mind. What do I feel in my feet right now? Give your body a break from the incessant thinking and just bring your awareness to your feet. And then each time your mind gets distracted or wanders, that's your opportunity to practice what we learn in mindfulness, to practice coming into your body, coming into feeling. What do you feel in your feet? And now let's move this same practice from the feet to your hands. What sensations do you feel in your hands right now? So not thinking about your hands, or maybe that's what comes up first. See if you can sense any feeling there. So the contact of your hands with your legs, the feel of the fabric of your pants, the space between your fingers, tingling, pulsing at your fingertips. Just keep noticing sensation. And just like with the feet, notice when the mind wanders. And without judgment, just bring your attention back. Notice too if there's a sense of urgency, like how much longer is this meditation? Um, I don't know if I have time to finish this. That's something to get to know because that's what drives you to come out of feeling. So see if you can just stay with the sensation in your hands. It's not a long practice. And now when you're ready, bring your awareness to your abdomen and see if you can feel your breath here. If you have a hard time feeling your breath here, you can put a hand on your belly, but see if you can put all your awareness on the sensation of the expansion in your belly as you breathe in, the pause, and then the contraction as you breathe out. And keep following the sensation, the feeling of your breath in your belly. Just like with the hands and feet, notice when your mind gets pulled away or when the attention goes up into your mind, and see if you can just, without judging that, invite your attention back to the next breath. Now we're going to indulge you sevens out there a little bit. Let you come up into your mind and picture something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Something going on in your life right now, currently, that's uncomfortable. And if you're having trouble thinking of something, because you're our positive type, maybe think of something that is boring for you, something that makes you feel trapped or limited in any way, something that if you are not delivering on a promise that you made to someone for a plan, maybe it's not having anything to look forward to. Just find something that makes you feel uncomfortable and picture that in your mind, almost like a 3D image of this uncomfortable thing. And then see if you can notice how your body is feeling as a result of bringing this uncomfort to mind, this discomfort to mind. What do you notice? And maybe it's spiraling thoughts about the event or the situation. But maybe often a seven will feel like energy moving up and out because they want to do something about what's going on. They don't want to sit in this feeling, and see if you can notice that. Just notice what you're feeling in your body. It's good to get to know how your body feels when you're in this space of discomfort. Maybe there's a rising in your chest or in your face, that sense of restlessness. Not trying to change it, just noticing it. And now I invite you to let go of the image and the sensation you're having, if you noticed anything, and come back to your breath at your belly. So come back to focusing on the sensation of the rise and fall of your abdomen. And notice if you keep popping up into your mind or if that thought of the uncomfortable situation arises again. That's just opportunity to practice. So notice it and bring your attention back to the next breath. Notice now how your body feels after just redirecting your attention back to your belly. If it feels any different from when you were thinking of the uncomfortable thought. There's no way you're supposed to feel or not feel. I'm just inviting you to notice. Keep redirecting your attention to the belly, feeling your breath here. Now we're going to add one more piece to this. As you breathe in, picture a warm white light coming from the crown of your head all the way down your body, from your chest to your belly, all the way down your legs, filling you up. And then as you breathe out, picture that light emanating from your heart and outward towards somebody in your life that you know could use a little love. So you breathe in this warm, loving kindness into your body. Feel your whole body fill up with this energy. And then you breathe out and feel the energy coming from your heart out to another person in your life that you think could use a little. Use a little of that energy you possess. So breathing in for you feeling your body as you breathe in, breathing out for another, feeling your body let go as you breathe out. One more deep breath in and a slow softening exhale. And as you're ready, just soften your posture and open your eyes. And maybe notice one last time how your body feels after that short mindfulness practice. I can't encourage you, if you're a 7 or any of us, because we have all 9 energies in us, how valuable it is to tune in even in just little moments of the day. Maybe even just one breath like that, where you picture a white light filling you up and you picture giving that light to another person. That takes all of, 3 seconds. But any way that you can encourage, all of us encourage some of that 4 energy, bringing that feeling and that sensation on board in any way that we can make a big difference.
Thank you very much, Julie. The Enneagram 7 in us and all of you Enneagram 7s out there, the virtue of the Enneagram 7, what I think of as sort of the pathway back is presence. Sobriety, but I really think of it as being present moment awareness. So I do think you're right. For all Enneagram types, mindfulness is essential, but for 7s, in many ways, it's the pathway home. So
I might just add to that, just because if you're new to any mindfulness practice and you're a 7 out there, I got to put a little plug for yoga, because sometimes that can be the entry into meditation, being able to sit still, because, yoga is really a moving meditation, and it's a bringing your attention into your body over and over again as you move. And sometimes for people, that's the way they can do it, or it's their entry into a more still practice.
So with that, all you Enneagram 7s, go out and find yourself a good yoga class, mindfulness meditation, listen to Julie's meditations, visit her at mindfulmouse.com, or
Yes.
you can check her out on the Defiant Spirit, my site, business page. We work together with a colleague, Katie, and we're bringing this to many of you 7s who are CEOs or leaders of organizations. So bring us into your organization, bring this teaching into your life, and get out there and defy your number and live your spirit. Thanks so much, Julie.
Thanks, B.